Welcome students. In our today's session, we will further discuss about the text of our today's essay on the pleasures of no longer being very young by GCRChuru. So students, as you very well know that in our earlier lecture we have discussed a little bit about the background information of our author and also first paragraph of today's essay. So now moving ahead, here we are. For instance, one pleasure attached to growing older is that many things seem to be growing younger, growing fresher and more lively than we once supposed them to be. So students, as you already know that here Chesterton is talking about the various kinds of advantages of being old person, old man or of old age, and uh, now proceeding ahead, he is actually here going to give a range of or a series of advantages of or growing or of old age or being an older person. He is saying that there are many kinds of there are certain pleasures or advantages which are attached to growing older, or which are attached to being in old age, and those advantages or those things which used to seem to the which no that sorry, he is saying that those things, those many things which seem to be more pleasurable or to be more fresher and more lively, which used to supposed as stale things or as outdated things. Why? And this is because we begin to see insignificance, or in other words, to see life in a larger number of traditions, institutions, maxims, and codes of manners that seem in our first days to be dead. So here Chesterton is saying that this is due to the fact that we or being an old man, he begin to see things more meaningful, or he begin to understand things more significant due to the fact that he is an old man at presently, and in his first days means in his young age, when he used to be in his full prime of youth, and at that time he used to see things or the traditions or the customs or institutions, old proverbs, sayings, maxims and code of manners as something which are useless, something which are meaningless or backward things. So a young man grows up in a world that often seems to him intolerably old, and he is further making his point clear here by saying that this is because of the fact that a young man actually grows in a world that often seems to him contradictory, seems to him something paradoxical, or the older things which to which he is associated, a young person who is associated to older customs, older traditions or older things, so those things he became or becomes intolerable for him. He considers those older things as intolerable. So he grows up among proverbs and precepts that appear to be quite stiff and senseless. So a young person when he grows up among those kind of old proverbs or those perceptions which he used to hear or he used to deal, and those things appear to him quite stiff, quite senseless, meaningless, and useless. He seemed to be stuffed with stale things, so he used to consider those things as stale and without any purpose, to be given the stones of death instead of the bread of life, to be fed on the dust of the dead past, to live in a town of tombs. So those things are just like to deal or to be fed on the dust of the dead past, or to live in the town of tombs. So that is something which he uh, understand as something intolerable or something out fashioned. It is a very natural mistake, but it's a mistake. So Chesterton is here making this direct point, or his direct observation, his direct calculation. We can say that younger people, they made or they make a mistake here, due to their though it is a natural mistake, but it is still a mistake, and they are on their wrong point. The advantage of advancing years lies in discovering that traditions are true and therefore alive. Indeed, a tradition is not even traditional except when it is alive. So here Chesterton is making this point clear, that the advantages of being in old age actually lies in the fact of discovering that all the old traditions are true. In fact, they are true, they are much more alive, they are not dead. So instead, here actually Chesterton is playing with the words that a tradition is not even traditional except when it is alive, that traditions are not dead. They are something which keep on through generation to generation. So they are not dead, they are alive. It is great fun to find out that the world has not repeated proverbs because they are proverbial, but because they are practical. So he is telling here that it's a kind of great fun of finding this fact that the world has not repeated proverbs because they are proverbial, but because they are practical. That when every person or every man grows or proceeds further in his life, or makes progress in his life, and grows with the saying or hearing of old proverbials, or they are they deal with the uses of proverbs, or it is not because they are proverbial, but because all those proverbs or maxims or code of manners, they are very very practical. So that is something, an important aspect of all those old proverbs, and that is something which can be understood only in the later age, or only in the old age, when people have much experience, have gained much experience of their in their life. Until I owned a dog, I never knew what is meant by the proverb about letting a sleeping dog lie, or the fable about the dog in the manger. So, further strengthening his argument, Chesterton actually here making some of his experiential illustrations from his own life, that he is saying here that until I had a dog, or in my life, I never knew that what is meant by the proverb like letting a sleeping dog lie, or the fable about the dog in the manger. So here he is mentioning two proverbs. One proverb is like is letting a sleeping dog lie. Actually it means that to ignore a problem because to trying to deal with it could cause an even more difficult situation, or it is said to warn someone. This proverb is actually said to warn someone, or to make conscious, to warn somebody that they should not talk about a particular talk about a bad situation, or that most people have forgotten about. It can be in this way. So the meaning of this proverb, the author didn't understand until he owned a dog. Or likewise the fable, the dog in the manger. So it means a person or who prevents others from enjoying something despite having no use for it. For example, when we say why be a dog in the manger, if you aren't going to use those tickets, let someone else have them. So just like a dog in the manger, or in the sense a dog who doesn't eat its food, or who also doesn't let others to eat that food. So the meaning of these proverbs, the writer didn't understand until he had the real life experience. Now those dead phrases are quite alive to me, for they are parts of a perfectly practical psychology. So Chesterton is making this direct remark, or he's saying that all these dead phrases, all these old proverbs or sayings have become quite alive, or have become quite meaningful to me, only because they are practically understood by me. And until I went to live in the country, I had no notion of the meaning of the maxim, "It's an ill wind that blows nobody good." So further he is giving another illustration, another instance of the famous maxim, that is, "It's an ill wind that blows nobody good." He is saying that until he visited, or he went in the country, he hadn't an idea of the meaning of this maxim. And it actually it's an old saying, "It's an ill wind that blows nobody good," which means that it is said to show that even a very bad situation must have some good results. So even a bad thing can have some positive aspects. Now it seems to me as pertinent and even pungent as if it were a new remark just made to me by a neighbor at the garden gate. So now at presently the writer has understood this thing, that it is very relevant, pertinent. It has some relevance in it, or it is very relevant for the essayist, that these kind of remarks actually made him very pertinent, and very actually made by some of made him to understand that these have some particular meanings or sense. It is something to come to live in a world of living and significant things instead of dead and unmeaning things. So it is now that he has this realization in his mind, in that now the world now he has come to the terms of in his real life with the significant things, and now he has understood that they are not dead, they are not meaningless, and it is youth in revolt, even in righteous revolt, which sees its surrounding as dead and unmeaning. So Chesterton is further making his point more clear that and it is because in youth the person, the young man in his youth, he was in revolt, and even in fact he is in his righteous revolt. So Chesterton here is actually is consider the attitude of the young people as righteous when they revolt, on everything, or when they consider all the things surround in their surrounding as dead or meaningless. So it is because maybe at certain point the young people may be right, because they don't have the experience of those things. They don't have that kind of maturity. It is old age and even second childhood that has come to see that everything means to see, means something, and that life itself has never died. So Chesterton is saying that it is because of the old age, and as old age is the second childhood of the person, of man, that it is the time when man come to see that everything has meaning, everything has something meaningful, and our life or itself has never died, that our the life itself has some positive has something that can never die, that can never finish, or because due to the practical experiences or the practical observations, experiences, or understanding, we become much more mature, and we become able to we will become more adhere to accept those things in positive way, that in older age it is only in the old age, or in our growing age, that we can understand truth this truth fully. So in this way he is making his arguments much more sound. And now with this I stop here, and we will continue our essay in our next lecture. Thank you, students.